right, next up we have a panel. This is our only unicorn panel of the summit, so this is very exciting. I'm going to be turning things over to our moderator, Jenny Anderson. Jenny is a journalist, author, and podcast host. She spent 20 years covering finance, including 10 at the New York Times. She's a weekly newsletter and hosts the Learn It podcast, which highlights leading edtech CEOs, school and university heads, policymakers, and learning scientists. And she's currently a fellow at the New America Foundation. So we're really thrilled to have her here. And she's going to be joined on stage by Lucy Suros, CEO of Articulate, Ritu Narayan, who's the founder and CEO of Zoom, Himanshu Palsule, CEO of Cornerstone OnDemand, and Adrian Ridner, CEO of Study.com. So here to discuss the brave new world of learning, please give it up for our panel.
Hello. Big room, lots of people. You're all here for us, not for Bill Gates, right? Thank you for joining us. This is a panel about the future of learning, so hopefully there's some natural interest in the room on topic. We've got a panel of EdTech unicorns, as you know, with deep expertise in learning and development, in K-12 higher ed and beyond, and in transport. So lots of topics to cover: generative AI, crazy markets, and of course, scaling EdTech, the perennial challenge. I'm just going to quickly introduce the panelists. I've got on my left Lucy Suros, CEO of Articulate, unicorn SaaS company, creator platform for workplace learning. Next to her is Ritu Narayan, founder and CEO of Zoom, but not the Zoom you're thinking of, ZUM, which is digitizing and electrifying the $28 billion student transport system. Next to Ritu is Himanshu Palsule, the CEO of Cornerstone OnDemand, which is a talent experience platform that unites compliance, teaching, and learning and data. And at the end is Adrian Ridner, CEO and co-founder of Study.com, an education platform that's supporting 30 million learners, educators monthly to achieve their academic achievements. So Lucy, future of learning, I want to start with you. You said to me, too often workers do not experience learning as learning. What did you mean by that, and what are you building to change that?
Well, first, thank you so much, Jenny. First, I want to ask you a question. How many of you get really excited when you get some sort of notification that you've got training to take at work? Anyone?
Yeah, hands are going up all over the room. Not.
And how much as human creatures do we like to learn? It's like one of the most basic motivating things about being human is that will and desire to learn. A lot of employees don't experience the training that they're being delivered at work as learning. You know, they're told go in and look at this PDF or even this video, and it's a very passive kind of, I'm just ingesting information. We need to transform that so that learning is actually an engaging, interactive, lean forward kind of modality. Yeah, exactly, lean forward. So that employees do feel like, especially this younger generation who expects their employees to be investing them as humans and in their development, we need to really keep those learners, to keep them those workers, to keep them engaged. We really need to change the way that we think about learning in corporations.
So not vessels to be filled up with information,
No.
but actually active humans that need to be motivated and engaged and brought into the process and seen as whole humans, which
Yes.
we will come back to. Himanshu, I'd love to have you build on that a little bit. You guys are both in the L&D space. You have a lot of big clients, the BMWs, Unilevers, Amazons. What are they asking for? What's changing in what they're asking for, and what are you doing in response to that?
Yeah, good question, and I'll build on what Lucy said. So Cornerstone's been doing learning for a while. We have 7,000 customers, hundreds of millions of users. But fundamentally, every day when we come to work and we talk to customers, there is sort of this chasm that everyone's trying to cross, where you have the old linear way of learning and the new nonlinear, unpredictable way of learning. I think this movement started about probably a decade ago, and it started with the advent of millennials into the workforce with very different experiences around learning, the availability of technology at an affordable price. sort of the flattening of the world and this whole thing becoming global. But where we see a lot of these enterprise customers struggling at is they realize the need to sort of democratize learning at a pace that is suited for the learner, but then still being caught up with these old legacy systems and platforms that still mandate a very sequential classroom type of training. So there's a lot of work, a lot of innovation going on, even at large companies like ours, is how do you change that mindset? How do you make learning available where you want it, when you want it, in these smaller vignettes for it to be effective?
It's like personalized learning for companies, right? I mean, there's really so many overlaps in the K-12 space, and Adrian, you can build on this a little bit, but it's amazing to think about the conversations we've been having in K-12 and how much they're mirrored in the workplace. How do we personalize? How do we recognize the human? How do we factor in motivation? Adrian, let's talk about, you have a one-platform service for K-12 higher ed and beyond, 2,000 curriculum designers. You told me that what a 14-year-old needs is not dissimilar to what a 40-year-old needs, which I found fascinating. What does that mean, and what are you building to do that?
Yes, thank you. And I think it sounds controversial at first, but if you think about it, and we have, as you said, 30 million learners and actually educators as well on the platform. When we look at a 14 or 15-year-old learning math who maybe has ADHD and is trying to learn, and you look at a 40-year-old who is also trying to learn maybe to finish their degree or to fulfill their dream to go from a waitress to a nurse and get their nurse certification, it turns out at the end of the day they need some similar things. One, it's not just about the knowledge, but if you simplify the knowledge, break it down, and make it as micro as possible, it does help a lot. The second is important, is to make it high fidelity enough. So for us, especially on video, we do animation in a way that is not super high fidelity on purpose, because the Leyland science says if you're 14 or 41, you can get stuck if it's too high fidelity, but you want it enough to be visualizable and memorable. But the most important component that they have in common is not just about the knowledge, it's about the self-confidence. And small early wins and wins that happen often are the biggest thing that they have in common that they need to build that confidence, to continue to progress, to finish whatever the learning outcome they're trying to achieve. It is critical. That's a big part of what we are building within the platform, and I think all the technologies, including AI, are going to just accelerate that.
There's so much wisdom in that for sort of all layers. For parents, small early wins and often, right? For teachers, something they know very well. For companies, I mean, it just kind of crosses everything. Ritu, you founded Zoom to be a ride-sharing service for kids, and I'd like to say as a working mother, amen and thank you. But you pivoted in 2021 to something way more ambitious, which is electrifying and digitizing the $28 billion transport industry for students, which is crazy. This is the second biggest line item for schools, is transport, but not something a lot of us are thinking about. Connect for us how transport and learning are connected. How does optimizing transport impact learning?
Great question. So Jenny, thank you. One thing we do not realize, that the experience of child for learning starts from their ride to the school, whether it's school bus or whatever ride they're taking, and ends with a school bus and that ride. And if that ride is long, windy, not efficient, not safe, polluted in CNG buses, then kids are not prepared to learn. And there are 27 million kids in the US that take school bus every single day. It's the largest mass transit system in the US. Even airlines, the next biggest mass transit system, there are only 9 million people traveling, even in the peak time. So that's the impact. And most of these kids spend more than an hour on the school bus, because this area for 80 years have not changed at all. It is not touched by technology. People still use walkie-talkie and maps with a thumbtack on their thing, and it's highly unoptimized. So that's an area in the gap that I discovered as we started working on first solving the problems of the parents. We realized, wow, the school transportation is broken, and we could use the same system to fix it. So today, actually, we provide the safe, reliable, and efficient rides to the kids by matching the right size of vehicles to the right size of ride, and reduce the commute time for students. In the process, we also save enormous amount of money for the districts that can be put back for after-school activities and learning activities and everything.
I guess as there's a lot of ed tech entrepreneurs in the room who are pinching themselves thinking, why didn't I think of transport? Missed that one. So there's been so much talk about generative AI, ChatGPT, so I'd love to just dive into that. But I'd like to ask you all to reflect on it a little bit, both as founders and CEOs, as well as sort of how it's impacting your learners at work, in classes. How is it disrupting what you're doing, and how is it providing opportunities, and what are you actually doing to meet those opportunities? Lucy, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so we think that ChatGPT and AI in general, integrating that into every aspect of our platform as kind of an assistant. We saw Microsoft is doing a similar thing, but basically it's like your buddy helping you to create courses faster and giving you intelligence about. You can imagine where you take the proprietary learning, all of your catalog, and you're able to surface insights from that and create better courses. So we're integrating AI into every aspect of our platform. We think that AI needs to have some guardrails. Like there's still ethical concerns to be figured out, especially when you look at things like deep fake kind of stuff. But we are really excited about the technology. We've been looking at it for several years, and so we'll be doing some stuff soon in our platform for folks.
Stay tuned. Adrian, let me go to you on this. How is this impacting your business? And also, where do you sit on this guardrails question? Should we let it fly? Should we rein it in?
Yeah, so I'm a software engineer by training. So I'm an informed optimist is where I landed on this after thinking about it a lot. I think it's really important for all of us to understand where things can go sideways and that we get educated. I actually think one of the biggest things about this whole conversation about AI is we can't take as long for AI to become a primary subject in school as we did debating if coding should be a primary subject, because to be able to use it and build it, we're going to have everyone understand it, and it's going to impact equality, because access and understanding of AI is going to impact your learning velocity, no matter what you're trying to do, if it's in K-12, if it's doing your job, and if you don't have access to it and you don't understand it, you're going to fall further behind, and it's going to create more inequality. So, but for us, we've been doing that for a while. I think we're very optimistic for the older learners, so call it high school, college, and beyond. We're very careful and doing a lot of research on the early learners, because I think it's not responsible for a fourth grader to have a chat buddy that doesn't know how to interpret the information versus an adult that can do it. But it's unlocking a lot of opportunity for learning. It's adaptive learning on steroids. We combine our billions of data points with ChatGPT, and it can create new pathways and new content. So maybe you were missing some drills or flashcards, and it can do it on the fly and add to what we already had on the platform. But also for teachers, making their work a lot more efficient. Imagine grabbing their curriculum from the LMS and merging all those units with exactly what they need to use on the platform in the order they need to create whatever is missing, and they never had to use search once. The goal is search should be irrelevant on our platform.
I also love the study that you all did, which showed that sort of 98%, they did a big survey of young people 18 and up. If I remember correctly, 98% of the young people knew about it. About half of them were using it to take tests and quizzes at homes, and two-thirds of them thought it should be banned.
Yes.
Which was complicated. But anyways, we'll leave the psychology of that alone. Himanshu, talk to me a little bit about, you bought an AI company a couple of years ago, I believe, when you first came in. What's happened with that? What are you using it for? And what are you seeing looking forward? What else are you going to need?
Yeah, let me take a bit of a contrarian view on this. Let's mix things up a little bit. Everything's running a little too smooth
Cartwheels.
here. So as a technologist, similar to Adrian, of course I'm excited. We all go to Baird and ChatGPT and ask largely pointless, irrelevant questions and are surprised. We are in that stage of learning, of its nascency. But then as a parent, as someone who's obviously part of a community, work for a charitable organization, this stuff spooks me. and there's been plenty of conversations around the ethics of AI, the bias of AI, the legislation of AI. So artificial intelligence has been here for a very, very long time. And the company we bought, Clustery, a few years ago, basically is a fabric of every learning decision that's made on our platform. So Ritu learns different from Adrian, learns differently from me, and you're served up different content based on your pace and velocity and all of that. Child's play. When you compare it to the innovation that's going on today in AI, and whether it's ChatGPT 3, 4, 5, what we will experience in the next 10 to 15 years, I'm now convinced, in probably the last 3 months, is game-changing. And with that comes so much responsibility, right? I mean, imagine the days where the only way you could learn, you went to a library, you bought expensive, for those of you who are as old as me, Encyclopedia Britannica books written by Nobel laureates. Then we moved to Wikipedia, which was instant and incorrect, but good enough for us. And now we're going to move to taking kids in school and allowing a system that is largely algorithmic to help them make decisions, right? My favorite story, if I may, Jurassic Park, you'll have seen the movie. Paleontologists spent their entire careers trying to prove, is dinosaur a cold-blooded mammal or a warm-blooded mammal? After the movie, kids were convinced velociraptors can open door handles with their hand. So that's the impact AI can have. It's instant gratification, but what we cannot lose sight of is inherent bias, inherent inaccuracies, and it's all of us, and many of you that sort of bear that mantle to make sure we don't let that happen.
So I'm hearing guardrails. We need more guardrails. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably not the time to expound on that right now. Ritu, what are you seeing? I imagine this has to be the engine that's powering a lot of what you're doing. What are you excited about? What are you worried about?
Yeah, I would give my thoughts both professionally. Like at Zoom, we of course use AI to make the system more safe and efficient. We use AI-based videos in our buses, which has completely changed the motivation of our drivers. Because before it was used as a punishment and hearsay, like people would complain and there was no way of knowing whether the driver did something or driver actually did a hard brake or they didn't drive well. But now with the AI-based camera systems, you can actually use to coach them and train them instead of thinking about like who did the mistake. And also it has been used in many times when kids were not found or whether it was in doubt whether the kids actually onboarded the bus or didn't onboard the bus. So in terms of entire technology. But I want to really add to what Himanshu said. I have a middle schooler and she is a great writer and a great artist. And obviously, as ChatGPT came out, she adopted it pretty fast and started searching for me and my husband, all the history behind us. And it lied so confidently, everything was correct, but for our colleges. And so one point is that to make it very accurate and not have children rely on that data when there is a bias and error. And second thing was this issue about you don't need to be a good writer to write. You don't need to be a good software engineer to code. You don't need to be an artist. You can copy anybody's voice. Leads me to question how fast the careers will change when they go to college and how fast we could adapt our education system to it. Like you always think about it, but now it's at a very accelerated pace. You don't know what careers your kids will be having in 4 or 5 years. So to me, that's an eye-opener and also a learning for all of us, like how fast we would have to adopt our systems to match that.
I'm writing a book and I'm finding it very reassuring, but I also have middle schoolers, which then scares the complete daylights out of me. There was a great quote. This was a professor talking about ChatGPT. And he wrote a letter to his students. I hope to inspire and educate you enough that you will want to learn how to leverage these tools, not just to learn to cheat better, which I think kind of captures some of the tension. Anyone else want to add anything? I want to move on to a different topic, but I do want to give a little airtime. Is there anything anyone wants to add in this space? Adrian, I see you nodding your head.
All right, just real quick. But I would say I agree, and you think about when you think about not just the regulation and compliance is important, but also our own understanding to teach our own children and as a society to be able to have the educational system adopted in a responsible way is important. 20%, even in ChatGPT 4, is hallucinations. They don't call it errors, and there's a reason. Because even though it's completely 100% wrong, it is convinced that it is right, and it will tell you so as if it was 100% right, just like a person hallucinating, right? And for us, the other piece that is interesting on the research we looked at is how quickly between 3.5 and 4 was evolving. I think we're not even grasping the velocity. It improved the SAT scores on some of the research we did by 27%. That is child's play to how quickly it will evolve. We think of the mobile phone from 2007. It took 4 or 5 years for the next step level up to evolve. The internet, it required technology, infrastructure, connectivity, people creating content and development. That took time. This will evolve faster than anything we have seen.
Can I just add one point? The one thing I believe, and maybe I'm a little old school on this, is the discipline of learning is more important than learning itself. 4 years, the discipline of learning, right? 4 years engineering, electrical engineering. I don't remember today how machines work or how electrical grids operate, but the fact that I had to go through those 4 years allowed me to think better, analyze better, predict better. My concern with this, if you're not careful, is jumping in and telling a child, giving him the answer early. I mean, I have an 18-year-old son who is convinced he knows more than me, is because of this sort of spotty way to go forward with it. So 50 years from now, this will not be a problem because we'll all have evolved to solve for it. The next 10 to 15 years could be a little rocky.
So I do want to just add one thing. I think our education system right now, and some of you might disagree with me, some of you might agree, is largely about mechanizing humans. Like here are the skills so you can plug into this capitalist sort of machine. And it's not really about schooling people on imagination, creativity. I mean, we've seen the cut of all kinds of arts and education, and that part, it's like teach the test and take the test, get the grade so that you can go on to get the job and get in the right college. And there's that is not going to win in a AI sort of dominated world where you have that kind of sort of processing power happening not by humans, but by machines. So how do we change our education system and rapidly so that we are creating humans who are prepared to be the imagination, be the questioners, be the sort of harnessing of this technology. And I think it's the most destructive thing probably since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, this is going to be massive. So.
Okay, you guys are freaking me out a little bit. I'm feeling like there might be some kind of secret AI happening because my next question was going to be about motivation, and I kind of feel like everybody's edging around it. So let's just hit it straight on the head, and then we will get to scaling and markets, which I know a lot of people in the room want to hear about. But there is this question: as the technology gets better and better, how do we, there's still humans at the core of this, people who need to learn, and you need the motivation to learn. You need the motivation to persist, to persist, and this is hard. How are you guys, briefly, how are you all thinking about this question of how do you motivate and understand a learner in a way that's not just software generated? Who's going to jump in on that one? Lucy, go.
I'll start. What we see is especially the younger workforce, they're being trained by TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They are being trained to what kind of experiences they want. So when we think about how we serve up learning in a corporate setting, it's like we have to deliver that consumer-like learning experience, and it is interactive. It's not just passive. So even I guess TikTok's kind of passive, but I guess you can like or whatever, share it with your friends. But there is short micro-learning delivered in the flow of work that's highly relevant, that feels personal. That's the way we've got to go to engage, especially this younger workforce.
And there is something about seeing a worker, right? There must be a layer on top of this, which is just the fact that you're responding to some of these things. Like I see you and you want this thing in a different way and I'm going to give it to you in a different way. There's something kind of meta about all of that. Who else wants to jump in on this question of motivation?
I'll jump in. I think the fundamentals of motivation don't change. What is the purpose? How much control do I have? What is the pace? And what is the reward? What has changed now is the emphasis on purpose and pace. The purpose to especially a millennial, if you want them to learn and ask them to go to a 6-week course, the question is going to be, what's the purpose of the 6 weeks? So someone mentioned micro-learning, anytime learning is important. And the most important thing is space. I was fascinated. I was visiting some of our customers in India. Their number one complaint about our video learning was that you cannot watch it at 1.5x speed, right? And then I talked to my kids, and they're like, of course, everyone watches at 1.5x speed. So again, every person learns differently. The motivation is different. I think it's going to be really hard pushing these kids into, once they get into the corporate world, into these 6-week, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, highly curated courses, because that motivation doesn't exist. So allow me to learn where I learn, how I learn. If I like TikTok, don't ban that from my house. Let me embrace it in a meaningful way and put a lot of pressure on those guys to get rid of all the crap. But at the same time, let us all understand that, that reward system, that so what of learning, and sometimes we don't do a good job at tying that to a success. We have a whole program on outcome-based learning. So what happened? Did you get promoted? Did you get upskilled? Did you get a new job? All of that becomes very relevant in this new world of learning, I believe.
Yeah, let me jump in. So if you ask some of the best teachers what their job is, what they'll answer is to build momentum for their students, right? And it's not just the knowledge transfer, we talk about a lot, but it's also confidence, self-belief, and then continue to do that. And that's a big part of motivation, right? And I think that as we're thinking about this, I'll be very controversial and say, for a lot of people, learning from other humans is the best way to learn. And yes, we can have technologies and platforms to enable faster, better, more flexible learning. But we also can't forget the support system. And I love the transportation piece because we have a lot of students that, even though we offer tutoring and you can, video chat or whatever, they don't want to turn their camera on. And the reason is they're not proud of where they're sitting and their siblings behind them and the 7 kids that are sleeping in the same bedroom. And that affects their motivation. So our tutors say, don't worry about it. We will do this over voice. We'll do this over screen share. That's not a problem. There's a human empathy component that we are forgetting to talk about when we talk about AI that is really, really important. You have to understand the whole learner, their situation, and support them to be able to motivate them. So it's not just about the instruction and the adaptive and how much, no one wants to waste time learning things they already know. That technology is already all there. How do you then combine that with the human element that we cannot take away from learning as we continue to add AI? That's the question for the next 5 years.
Thank you. I think that, I think we do forget to talk about that a lot, and that's pretty core. I do think that COVID gave us a big wake-up call as to the power of that, right? We need to be in buildings with other people. Learning is a social process at its core, and we really need that. I want to make sure we get to scaling. There are a lot of people in this. This is an EdTech conference. Scaling EdTech is a knotty problem. You all have managed to hack that, so I'd love to get some reflections here on when you knew it was going to work, right? Work at scale, not kind of work the product, not work, but like really work at scale. When did that happen? Let's start with Ritu.
It was an evolution for us. The first thing is, of course, finding a great problem set, which is a painkiller, not a vitamin, which in our case, like kids have to go to school every single day, twice a day, and they have this issue. But we kept on moving more and more towards bigger and bigger go-to-market. Initially, we were using a small set of vehicles with highly certified drivers in Uber-like model to deliver, and we realized that we are not serving 100% of the kids. We are not serving the entire transportation, and kids still will travel in group, no matter what. That is the right way of transportation. And so for us, we knew when it was working was when school districts started giving us the contracts, with pretty large contracts. And first contract that we had in 2016 was $50,000, and it was accidental. We went there asking them to promote us to parents, and they said, we want to use us internally. And the solution kept on evolving as we evolved. By 2018, our largest contract was $1 million. And today, our largest contract is $400 million, with second largest district in the country, LA Unified. So
that was the moment. The $400 million contract was the moment you were like, okay, we're on to something.
So the thing is finding finding a market and not getting like stuck with what you started with, really seeing what customers need in the market and where the market is going, even with your all the things is a key to us.
Respond to the data and be willing to pivot, because again, you started as a ride-sharing app, so there were a lot of twists and turns. Who else wants to weigh in on this? Lucy.
I think, we've been around for a long time, 20 plus years, and we found product market fit almost immediately. So we've been profitable, highly profitable from year 2 of founding. But when it really solidified that this thing was going to work was about 10 years in, and we launched a product called Articulate Storyline, and we started to see in our community, just this rapid, we have a million member community now, and we started to see in the community these job listings and questions for people, for Storyline developers, and realizing that we had created a whole category of workforce around our tools was the moment we were like, okay, we got this.
We got this. Himanshu?
Yeah, slightly different take. When I joined Cornerstone, we were already an established company, been around for a while, 100 million users. They, stats show every 3 seconds a Cornerstone course gets taken around the world. So we had scale. The challenges are when you have scale, your problems also are at scale. We had a famous example of a very large company that I won't name, where the CEO got assigned a course for new managers. And the visibility that creates when a mistake is made, we have large customers in public sector all over. So scale for us is responsibility in accuracy, because if something goes wrong, all of a sudden there's literally millions of learners whose outcomes are impacted, their certification, their assessments, their badging go wrong, and these become big events. So we're on the other side of it, where we've got the scale, although Ritu, you're buying drinks tonight for that $400 million contract. But we have to be very careful especially with AI and innovation, the blast radius is much larger, and we have to be very careful when we roll something out.
Adrian?
Yeah, so I'll have an answer for B2C, for direct to consumer. We knew when something really strange happened, which is we were focused on building the product, the platform, the courses, and we started getting a bunch of requests, thousands of how come someone can't buy a subscription for the whole year? Because, we assume what student or even, teacher wants to pay for the whole year. When we knew that they were like trying to prepay, maybe get a little discount because they were going to stick with it, and that became a customer support problem at scale. That was a really good sign. The other one was we started getting a lot of essentially ambassadors that self-created themselves, referring people they knew, making YouTube videos and TikTok videos about how do you study to hack your degree or get your nursing certification. That was also, I had family members send me videos. That worked out. For B2B, I would say when districts started coming to us and schools started coming to us because their teachers were raising their hands and saying, we need this, but not just for me, but I need it for my department, my school, my district. That was a pretty clear point.
That's great. We're almost out of time. I want you guys to give a quick bit of advice to some of the younger ed tech founders in the room. One line of advice. What should they know?
When you hire someone, know what they're doing on day one.
Precise. Ritu.
For us, the number one value is customer obsession, just knowing in and out what your customers need, their journey, and what they want.
Know your customer.
Think big. You have a platform of technology at such an affordable scale that dream as big as you can, and you'll be surprised that you'll be able to make it.
And I'll add to that, don't let anybody tell you because of where you come or what you look like or how you talk that you can't do it. You can do it, and there's no better time today to start a company with what's available to us. So don't let anyone put you down, and make sure that you believe in yourself first. Surround yourselves with other people who believe in you and lift you, and you can do anything.
I think that's some pretty solid advice, even if you're not an ed tech. investor, so we can carry that one forward. You guys have given us so much to think about today. Keeping the human at the center of the learning. With scale comes big problems. Iterate, be willing to pivot a lot, and I just love this kind of putting the human at the middle of the learning experience, even when they're grown-ups. We talk about this a lot in education because we're dealing with really young people. But, you know, old people also want to be seen and heard and attended to. So I'm really grateful to all of you for your insights and for your hard work. And on to the next guest, who I believe is a big deal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.